I say this a lot that, you know, if I'd gone to any other school, I probably would have followed through with accounting, you know. I mean, I had great professors. I was good at the coursework. I passed all the exams with flying colors, and I thought I liked it. But, you know, having that experience, having my first co-op in accounting, and really knowing what it's like to do that, I got that experience to know that that's not what I wanted to do. And that's, you know, just as important as figuring out what it is you want to do. Finding that out as a sophomore in college instead of as a recent graduate, it makes all the difference. For my third co-op, I worked at a company called Nine Technology, a software startup. And it was just a night and day difference. You know, I ran the sales and marketing team with another co-op. We were doing, you know, financial figures, we were doing accounting, we were doing everything that I'd learned in the past, but really we owned it. And it was cool to just make a difference like that. I really enjoyed working with clients. I really enjoyed, you know, the sales side of things, but more than that, the relationship between us and the customer. And you know, once they become a customer, kind of staying in touch with them and checking in and see how things are going, because you know, there's such a big focus on customer service these days that you know, a customer's just going to walk away if they're unhappy. They're probably not going to tell us why. They're probably just going to go to a competitor. And that is one thing I enjoyed when I was in accounting. We were in client services, so I kind of matched all those experiences up together and said, all right, I love startups and I like working with clients.
For one of my first days of co-op, I went into a room with a nurse. There was this adorable blonde hair, big blue-eyed girl. She was 3 years old, completely normal. The mom came in and just said she was so tired, always sleeping at nap time in class and just not herself. The nurse asked me to just play. She had little horse figurines with her, and she just said, can you just distract her and play with her? And of course, I went right there, not knowing what was going to be said. And the doctor came in and told the parents that her child had leukemia, and they didn't know how long she was going to last. And the parents were completely beside themselves, and I mean, you can only imagine. And I ended up being able to follow this family through my whole co-op, and after I stayed on per diem. And my last day of co-op, they were getting discharged, and the child responded amazingly to chemo, and they knew it was my last day of co-op, and the little girl came up to me with a little bracelet and a card and just handed it to me, and she thanked me, the parents thanked me for making this awful experience something positive, and that they had something, the child had something to look forward to every day, knowing I was going to be there to play with her. I want to be a nurse. I want to save lives. I want to impact families. I want to change an awful, terrible situation that we can't prevent into something that they can look back and say, thank God I had that nurse. Thank God I had that team with me and that support system during one of the worst times of my life. I didn't think I wanted to be the hands-on, intense situation. The co-op program opened my eyes to, I want to be right there. I want to be in on the action, and I want to be a nurse. It's 100% what I want to do.
So at Harvard Medical School in Clay Reid's laboratory, there was a point where I was doing experiments, and I was surrounded by these microscopes that, you know, the lab had built themselves, and these are multi-million-dollar lasers and microscopes that I'm surrounded by equipment that is just hugely expensive, hugely, you know, powerful, really the cutting-edge kind of tools. And I was alone in there. I had a mouse, you know, in the experiment. I was setting up these experiments. I was doing all the imaging myself, and I was literally surrounded on all sides by all this equipment and running every little part of it. And I was the reason why this mouse was up there. I was the reason why the experiment was going, and the reason why we were doing that experiment. And I just, you know, really had this really humbling type of feeling that, you know, like I did this, and this is meaningful, and we're going to find out something that nobody in the world knows. And we're actually pushing, you know, human knowledge really into a new frontier. Working in a neuroscience laboratory is kind of like starting a whole new family, because you're in the lab basically day and night. So you interact a lot with these people, and it's not just this formal, okay, your role is this, your role is this. There's a constant interaction and integration ideas across people, and that's where the true creativity lies, is throwing ideas across each other. There's no manual that's going to tell you how to become a good scientist, what question that you need to ask. It's really a creative process in trying to come up with these things and coming up with the tools in order to do these things. Co-op has been absolutely instrumental into really helping me decide what I want to do for the rest of my life, and I could not be any more sure that this is what I want to do. I want to be a neuroscientist, and I'm going to be a neuroscientist.
My best friend from home, her mother, was actually on a flight somewhere, and she met my current boss, Paul Padini, and he's an engineer for a construction company. And so my friend's mother just started saying, oh, like architecture. I know someone who does that, and basically convinced him that I was, just such a great candidate that he had to interview me. And he hired me, so that was a huge relief, I guess, because I didn't have to go through the whole searching process. It was just like, one and you're done. And on that co-op, when I started out doing something kind of architecture related, just using AutoCAD, the program that we typically use in our day-to-day work, and then I kind of fell into working on proposals when I was asked to help out on one, and they realized, or Paul realized, that what I did was a lot better than what they had been doing in the past. I guess most recently I worked on a statement of qualifications for the Tappan Zee Bridge. It's like a $5 billion project that they're trying to have the Tappan Zee Bridge replaced. One of the women that was working on the proposal with us, she asked me, so like, how long have you been doing this? And I explained to her, that I'm actually still a student and I'm on co-op, and she was very surprised, of course. And I mean, she was just very supportive. She said, "You're doing a great job," and she joked that she was going to try and steal me for her company.
I think the most satisfying moment was at the beginning of my third co-op at VMware. So this was in the first few weeks where I was still adjusting to the new environment. I was still getting to know people's names, and I was still coming to grips with the project that I would be working on for the next 6 months. And I was in a meeting in maybe the first week with my mentor and another engineer who was there from time to offer input or advice during the design process. I was in this meeting in the first week of a brand new job, surrounded by all of these really intelligent people who I had a lot of respect for. And we were in the meeting discussing design options for the system. And they were talking about all of these potential problems that they could spot when we were just sort of bouncing ideas off of each other. And I was astonished that I could actually follow along with what they were saying. So there were these two really smart people who really knew what they were talking about, and they were discussing these pretty complex ideas on how to solve these problems. And I was actually following along as if I was an equal with these two people. That for me was really satisfying, because the previous 4 years at Northeastern in class and on co-op had sort of, they had enabled me to follow along as a peer with these two people who I had a lot of respect for their abilities. It was a really good indication that I was actually becoming close to an engineer who is going to be able to actually contribute a lot to the project. And that was a very satisfying feeling, I thought.
Suffolk, that was my first co-op. I was 19, I was a sophomore. We were demolishing a 7-story existing building in the theater district and building up a 12-story dorm project for Suffolk University. One of the things that was really interesting about our project was we abutted Suffolk University dorms. So I was a college kid working on that project, abutting buildings and partaking in loud construction activities, keeping up other college kids, waking them up in the morning, and I became kind of the liaison between our company and Suffolk University. One of the things I think about is on my first week on the job, my boss said to me, he says, "Yeah, I want to get right to the point with you, so I want you to know that you're a sophomore, you're early on in your academic career. I just want you to know that it's 80% of what you learn out here in the field, and really only 20% of what you learn in the classroom. Not discounting the academic experience in any way, shape, or form, but really just wanted me to know how important it is to take the academic experience, but really to pay attention when you're out in the field, because that's what's going to build your career. Kind of just threw me right into the fire, and that was something that gave me a lot of responsibility right off the bat. And there was about 20 guys working on the demolition crew, and they'd come to you with questions at night when your boss wasn't around, and you might not know the answers. But my boss's take on that was, rather than come to me every single time you have a question, make a decision. And sometimes I might not be happy with you for that decision, but you learn something from it, and I'll tell you that. If it's a very big decision, you're uncomfortable, give me a call. But I'd rather you make a decision and me come back to you the next day saying I would have done things a little different and this is why, than you calling me all the time, because it's really the only way you're going to learn.
On my second co-op, I decided to go down to Washington, D.C. and work for United States Senator Jack Reed from Rhode Island, my home senator. And so I went down for a 4-month co-op on Capitol Hill and worked as a legislative intern in Senator Jack Reed's office. The congressional session was drawing to a close, and I had one of my superiors ask me to help draft a floor speech that the senator would give as several of the other senators were ready to retire. So this was something that I knew, unlike some of my other projects, would go right up to the chief of staff, would hopefully get to the senator and actually be delivered in a speech, and so I wanted to make sure I did it right. So I took the time to really research it properly and go down to the Senate library and put together what I thought was a solid final product. I felt good about it in the end because this speech was delivered by the senator, and when I did have the chance to speak with him towards the end of the co-op experience, the chief of staff went out of her way to say to the senator that I had done that I had contributed to this project in a positive way, and so I felt that I was recognized for my work and felt that I played a role in a piece of the Senate office's work. Every day was exciting in Washington, D.C. It was a real opportunity to all the excitement, all the political excitement that you see on TV. It was to be a part of it every day and to feel like you were contributing towards the important work of the government. So I felt that as I was down there, that I had a real opportunity to be engaged in the world of politics in a way that I hadn't before.